Okay. So you guys are all working on automation at some point, on some level, in different forms, right? And I want to start with, what are some challenges you didn't predict at making a robot that deals with organic materials that you kind of came to learn later on, right? So Deepak, I want to start. Your machine is loaded with, food. What were some things that you didn't quite realize were going to be sticking points, for lack of a better term?
One of the surprises we got was the fact that we had to train people to handle these robots, to operate these robots. When we train people, we would train people at a company cafeteria. We'd put a Sally in, and the employees would change after a month or two because people keep changing jobs all the time in the food business. And then we had to go back and train them again. And so that's a big problem, right? If you've got customers in New York, you can't keep flying people across the country to train others. So we made the product so simple, and we're making it simpler still. And we want to create what I like to call an Apple experience. You got to take it out of the box and use it without any training. That's the goal. We're not fully there yet, but we're almost there, I believe. So that's one of the big learnings we got.
Okay. Chaz?
Yeah, for us, we're on a third generation machine, and each machine teaches you a lot. You make something, and then you have to listen to it. And for us, we found that maybe 15% of the effort was getting it to actually make the specialty coffee, and then 80+% is what do you do when it doesn't, right? And how do you self-recover in all the data that was required to go really make these things function by themselves, because the process is, like Vince said, so discrete and spread out, and there's so many points for failure, you've got to auto-recover. So I think our early learnings were around how do we make a machine that's really robust and can recover when things don't go right. And
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would echo.
Check your mic to make sure it's on. Just slide it up. There you go.
Yeah, I would echo both of those. I would also say, for us, it's making sure that the form factor is playing nicely, with the software, with the AI, and making sure that you have kind of a purpose-built product, and not just kind of clunking things together. So that's something that really needs to be done, and a lot of effort needs to be focused on that to make sure that consumers are happy with the product and the experience is there. So.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit about business models right now, like owned and operated versus like licensing out, and some of the differences, because you guys have your own platform, AutoX, Briggo, Chowbotics, right? You have your own thing, but then you're also starting to branch out into, you're working with third parties as well, right? So Deepak, you have Salad Station in the South. You guys haven't talked about anything specific, but you are, as you expand, are looking out. What are the benefits of being owner operated, and then what are the drawbacks that you're finding, or what are the things that you've had to overcome, sort of managing your own fleet?
Yeah, as far as our business goes, we normally sell our machines to third parties, and they operate it. So if we were to put it in an office cafeteria somewhere, if Compass Group or Aramark or Sodexo manage that cafeteria, they buy the machines from us, or they get that client to buy the machines from us, and then they operate the machine themselves. So that model works well. We've got a lot of our 50 machines. We've got 50 plus machines across the country. A lot of our machines operate that way. The main challenge with that model is it's $30,000 for a machine or $650 a month. You can either finance it or buy it. And the food service business doesn't move as fast as tech startups do. So it takes a long time to get people to pay $30,000 or pay $640 a month. And so we are looking increasingly at other models as well. And one of the things we've done is we've got the salad restaurant chains in different parts of the country. One of them is publicly announced. It's with Salad Station. They're a major salad chain in the south of the country. And we also have one such model with Bonduelle, which is the biggest prepackaged salad vendor in the world. And that collaboration's in Europe. What these guys do is they buy our machines, and they pay us the $30,000. And then they place the machines for free in offices and hospitals around. And the benefit there is, instead of for them to build a new store, for these salad restaurants to build a new store is $500,000 or $1 million. That's a lot of money. But if they get a Sally, they get a new location for $30,000. It costs almost nothing for them. And they can place these in offices and hospitals, put their own branding on it. So it's almost like a new location which brings revenue for them. That's been hugely successful because the slow-moving food service folks in hospitals or offices, they don't have to pay anything for the machine. They just put the machine in there. They, in fact, get a revenue share.
Yeah.
And we benefit from that because we can, if someone's getting a machine for free, then we get to pick and choose where the machine goes in. So we can pick high-traffic locations. And that model's worked really well for us.
Awesome. Chaz?
Yeah, for us, all of ours are owner-operated right now, but we are transitioning to a blended version of that, and where we would license the machine, but get a revenue share back, and then we manage those machines technically remotely. So in our operating system would be managing all of those, and then offload some of the restocking to the licensee. So since they're at location, it's a lot easier for them to do that. We do training on that. So it's initially we wanted to own, we do own them all because we wanted to maintain the brand and the quality, but we also wanted to learn and understand how, at what level we could offload some of that, and also to leverage other people's capital. You're starting up, and we have it's a lot of capital for us, but it also helps with us. We can find the locations, but when we license, those people already have typically the real estate, and it allows us to, we've been able to show them that they can use redeployable capital in this way. So if that location doesn't work right, you can pick it up and move it to another one that's more efficient. And that's kind of a big benefit in that.
And that's what I would add to that as well, because if you have a physical store somewhere, if the location isn't right, the franchisee is toast. But with these robots, you can actually pick Sally and move her to the next building if it doesn't work well in this building. So the risk for starting a new restaurant location is much lower.
Gotcha.
Right. And that really, for a coffee shop, that's just sunk capital, and you can't do anything with it.
Right.
Or the dynamics can change over time. Was a great location, suddenly it's not. Right.
Right.
That's what you do.
So for Hugo, you have the AutoX platform, right?
Yep.
And then how much co-branding are you looking at doing in terms of like dedicated, like this is I'll just pick out like the Pizza Hut one, or like the 7-Eleven one, since it's like a mini mart as well. What have you sort of noticed so far? Do people, because you have to build the brand, right? AutoX, and train people to use it that way.
Yeah, I mean, so as I mentioned in the other panel, we're an enabler of L4 autonomy. So we enable, other companies to effectively take advantage of autonomous driving. And the use cases are pretty endless, right? I mean, there's obviously the delivery space for food and goods, which we're about to announce a partnership on that side of things, in North America. But then, there are, for instance, logistics that can take advantage of our smaller form factor and that can deliver stuff within their warehouse. So, and again, we enable these companies to do so with our software. And if, for instance, we've partnered with several OEMs, if they have a certain hardware that they want to use, we can we are licensing our software for those specific pieces of hardware.
Yeah, I think we were talking before, right, where everybody's kind of developing their own specialty in terms of what they do, right? Like you got the self-driving thing, right? And then the car will take care of the car, and the restaurant can take care of the food, and it's kind of orchestrating all those pieces where everybody is responsible for their own domain, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've spoken with several OEMs, mobility companies, and so forth that have expressed a lot of interest in actually, owning the fleet and managing the fleet and taking care of that side of the equation. And so, like you had said, this way people can focus on what they're good at, right? You have those people focusing on that. You have people focusing on food, making the food, and then you have the software and the autonomous driving, companies focusing on that side of the equation.
Right. I want to wrap in some human elements here, but I want to start with the companies yourselves. How hard is it for you to find the engineers, the design, the software talent that you need to make what you're doing? Like, how picky can you be given the labor market, and what are some of the issues that you're facing? Chaz, you're in Austin, right? Does that present any, is that a boon, or is that?
That's actually worked well for us. There's a lot of food startup. There's a lot of focus on food out of Austin, Tito's, and there's a lot of different things going on in Austin. But I think for us, I talked before about the bigger vision of what we're trying to do in terms of being good back to origin and kind of showing how we don't be so wasteful in the West. We've been able to connect and draw in engineers that have that shared vision of what we want to do, and they've become very passionate about it. And we've had incredibly loyal engineering talent and marketing and across the board. And Austin's a little more, I don't know, in the Midwest, people stay with companies a little bit longer than they might in the Valley here. And so we've been able to have, really loyal people that kind of see the long-term vision and stick with us. So Austin's been a boom to us for that. And there's a lot of technology, but a lot of people kind of into food.
Okay, so you are after that subtle jab at the West Coast thing.
No, I didn't mean it as a jab, but I'm just saying.
I'm just kidding.
I've lived in both places. Yeah.
No, but okay, so the San Francisco, the Bay Area is notoriously expensive, but also, it's where a lot of talent is. Are you able to find the hardware engineers and the software engineers that you need for food-related things? It's not just a cold analytical problem of moving a box around a warehouse, right? There's a lot more that goes into it.
Yeah, what I've found from my years managing engineering teams at least is a superstar engineer can produce 10x more work per unit time compared to a regular engineer. So you got to look for those superstars, and they're not geographically concentrated just in one place. We have some members of our team in China, some in India, some in the Bay Area as well. And I find our superstars are distributed all across the world. And the superstars in China are great because they cost 1/3 and they normally work 6 days a week. But I have people here in the US.
Putting the pressure on for people in the room.
But I have people in the US who are fantastic as well. So we've got great talent, and they stick to us. We haven't had any of our engineers leave. And I think you can find great talent anywhere in the world, and you just need to find that great talent and,
Quick show of hand, who is a superstar engineer in the room? That guy right there. All right.
Yeah, send me a resume, please.
Hugo, for you, right now you have to have a person in the car, right? And this is just totally curious. What does that person do when they pull up to with a grocery delivery? What are you trying to tell them to do so that the customer doesn't feel like there's just a person watching me take my groceries out of the back of the car?
Yeah.
Versus combating some sense to come out and help or whatever.
That's a great question. Yeah, no, we're very much focused on, like you said. I mean, we have a safety driver in the vehicle now, and we obviously want to simulate, exactly what the experience is going to be when there is no safety driver, because that's the only time when things start to make sense. At least from an economics perspective, and kind of the whole point, right, is when there's no safety driver. So, very much they just sit in the car, and they don't interact at all with the people picking it up, and it's very much what we call curb to curb. So the car will go to the restaurant or wherever it is, to the store, and they know. We pick our customers, on the business side carefully, and they load up the vehicle. And then we'll come up to to the end point, and there's definitely a good subset of the market which is familiar with technology, and they kind of go out and they do their thing and pick up the food, and that's it. And so there's really very little or practically zero interaction with our safety driver and everyone else. So.
Gotcha. So for those who may not know, Chaz used to be a chip designer, so he is uber nerd, in terms of designing with Motorola back in the day. And so I want to start this question with you, but how are you looking at 5G, and what is how are you preparing for it now? Are you preparing for it now? What will it unlock?
Well, it'll allow a much richer interaction with our customers than we have right now, I think. And for us right now, it's not a top of mind thing to focus on. For us, we're really focused on our stage of our company right now. We'll be looking down the road for what to do with that best, but I have to admit, it's not the top of my list of priorities. It's around.
I guess I was just asking because there's a lot of IoT built into your machine,
absolutely.
Right? Every single thing,
And we're a little old school in that we're hardwired, and so all that communication goes that. When 5G comes and we can just use that, that'll simplify our installation, things like that. But I think in terms of what we do with our app and the richness there and how much we can really offer and connectivity, that'll make a big difference. But
excellent. Deepak, anything you just...
Yeah, I don't think it would impact our customer experience because the wireless connectivity speed doesn't really impact our customer experience as much.
Okay, I didn't also mean like just from the back end, anything that might... But that might not be a thing. I guess what I'm also getting at is sort of the lifespan of your product, right? Like we're used to built-in obsolescence.
Right.
But these are big machines that take up a lot of space and people invest heavily in them. So how much... For you, when somebody buys a Chowbotics, like how much are you thinking? Like, how long do you expect them to be using that machine?
It's a 5-year lifetime for the machine.
Okay.
And even when they introduce 5G, it's going to be backwards compatible with our machines, and you can upgrade to 5G if needed on the machine as well.
Sure, sure.
yeah. And ours is 10 plus years, but at 5 years we have like a refurb, if you would.
Okay.
And at that point we'd do the same kind of thing, backward compatible. Also, of course, computers and things like that are all going to have to be updated and
Sure.
and that kind of thing. But all the hardware, that stuff lasts forever. I mean, the really high-end actuators that we're using, that stuff is made used in factories forever. So that stuff will last long.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say 5G is very, obviously very top of mind for us, very important when it comes to, communication not only between the vehicles, but, even with, back to HQ with our teleoperation technology and all that. So that's very important to us.
So the as you are building out these products, how much of it is hardware versus software? Right. So how much of it? I mean, and it might be split evenly, but for you, you have a touchscreen, and you both have touchscreens enabled. You have a mobile app, right? How much emphasis are you putting in on the software side and the design side versus the hardware design side?
I would say it's around 50-50 right now for us. The software is a key differentiator because when people interface with the robot, they're interfacing with the software, and we keep updating the software pretty much every month. It makes a huge difference to the customer experience for us.
And for us, it's shifting. It was pretty heavier in hardware early on, and then became more and more software. So we have the full stack in house, and I see us shifting more and more to software and data Linux. So it's for us, it's probably 50-50, shifting to 30-70 as the hardware has becomes more stable and more features we'll add in software.
Yeah, I mean, I would say both are very, very, very important for us, obviously, but, beginning of the company was very, very much, software focused. You can imagine it's, autonomous driving. It's still being, ironed out and perfected. So it's very, very sort of software heavy. And, now we're as that's maturing and we're, entering more kind of in the pilots and execution side of things, then we're more focused on integrating that with different hardware. So that side of the company is now growing. So
one of the things we kind of talked about before today was sort of the specific rules. Because you're handling food, there are certain things that you need to adhere to. And looking at the audience and seeing kind of who registered for us, there are some people who aren't in the food space, so they may be surprised to learn that you can't have any like corners. You have to have rounded things so food doesn't get caught. Are there any things, and for AutoX, it might be you need to keep the car inside at a certain temperature. Is there anything as you've been designing the product that is very food specific?
Yeah, the biggest challenge with all these robots is there's a whole lot of robots out there. Okay, so it's the big challenge is scaling to 50 locations or more. For us, we launched the first 3 or 4 in the market, and we got some learnings from them. But the hardest part was scaling from 3 or 4 to 50 because you encounter so many use cases around the world, and you find. So we had one. For example, in one office we installed in, the engineers had a habit of unplugging the machine from the power to work on their laptops with that socket. So we had to figure out how to prevent people from removing the cables. We installed in one location in France where the students were trying desperately to hack into the machine. and they put porn on the machine. And so we had to figure out how to prevent people from hacking the machine. And then in the kitchen itself, there's just so many different types of ingredients we put in the machine, and we got to make sure the machine is stable despite so many different types of ingredients. And that was a lot of work, and we have finally passed that hump as well. And like you said, we had to work with the food safety folks for almost 2 years to make sure there were no sharp corners anywhere. The food is, you don't have bacteria collecting anywhere. And you also want to make the machine very, very easy to service. We have one investor from McDonald's who used to keep complaining about his machines going down all the time, and how he was spending so much money, fixing all these machines. And so he pushed us to have only 7 serviceable parts on the machine, and anyone with a screwdriver could replace a part which is broken. And I'm glad he pushed us, because now we've got 50 machines out there, and the machine is ridiculously simple to service. So we don't have to train service people all across the world through intensive training to maintain these machines. Pretty easy to maintain. So there's a lot of these learnings we've learned when we scale. The hard part's scaling all these things up.
Sure. Chaz?
Yeah, for us, obviously we're dealing with fresh milk, and that's a really difficult thing to deal with. We're fortunate to hire an engineer that spent 20 years at Johnson & Johnson doing pharmaceutical manufacturing and building machines for that. So he was way up here in terms of the scale of food safety. And so it took us a while to really get through, you go through iterations to get a design that is food safe and cleans itself. So for us, it sanitizes itself every night in the entire food system. So we don't rely on humans to do those maintenance functions. So it's not just robotics around making the drink, it's robotics around maintaining the machine and using food safety. People that are really focused on that and live their whole life on it, they teach you an awful lot. And so that's what we relied an awful lot on Steve for that.
Excellent. Hugo, anything?
Yeah, I would say, you can imagine autonomous driving consumes a lot of power with the sensors and compute power for the AI and so forth. So we've actually and we knew that we were going to be integrating with cooling systems or kind of other parts for food and delivery. So we've spent a lot of time architecting a system which is quite efficient with power consumption. So that's something we focus on.
Awesome. Well, with that, we are going to close out. Thank you all so much for being here, and we're at a lunch break.
Great.